Sorry, I accidentally cut off the video. But yeah, because I'm not a narcissist, I don't think like that. I don't have an instinct to just screw somebody over and they did nothing to me. Like I would have to have anybody that is not a narcissist that has a healthy level of empathy, compassion, and sympathy will not be able to just ruin somebody's life for no reason. And jealousy, even jealousy wouldn't be enough. We all have moments of jealousy. But envy is when you choose to act on it. Jealousy is an insecurity, a feeling that if addressed in a healthy way can be life-changing. It can be positively life-changing. But when it becomes envy, it's pretty much when that connection is over. When somebody shows that they're envious of you, it's one thing to be jealous. We all have those moments, where we're jealous of somebody or somebody's success makes us insecure. That's normal. It's humanity. We all get jealous and insecure sometimes. But when somebody's able to keep that jealousy under control and address, well, why am I jealous of this person? I think I'm kind of jealous of this person. Well, why am I jealous of this person? What did they do to trigger my jealousy? Is it an insecurity? Is it, am I being reflected back to me that, something in my life needs to change? Like, what is it exactly that's triggering my jealousy? For the people who struggle with jealousy, if they had that healthy inner dialogue, maybe it would turn into something, it would blossom into something beautiful, really. But when it becomes envy, that's pretty much when the connection is over. And there was a lot of people that I dealt with in my lifetime that were envious of me, and I didn't know. A lot of them, they hit it very well. There were red flags that if I knew now what I knew then, I would have walked away from the connection much sooner. But in some situations, especially when we're in school, we can't necessarily just, get away from certain people because we have classes together, or say we're in a group project, or we're assigned to be partners. It's not necessarily as easy to cut somebody off or to completely avoid them altogether, because say if you got a class with them and they're sitting right in front of you or right next to you and your teacher makes you partners, or like I said, you have to do a group project together. If not, or y'all have assigned seats, right? Because that's a lot of times what's being practiced in public schools. Even in college, there are assigned seats for the most part. So it's not always easy to get away from somebody if you work with them or you go to school together and you guys are forcibly in a close proximity of each other. It's not always easy to just, ignore that person or cut them off completely, right? And that's unfortunately what I had to go through. Some of these people I didn't really fuck with like that, and if it were really up to me, I wouldn't talk to them. But some of them, like, especially because they chose to be in class, chose to have the same classes as me and the same lunch period, and decided to join extracurricular activities with me, I couldn't control what they did. I wasn't going to let them ruin my extracurricular activities or my grades because they chose to follow me around. But I couldn't control what they did. Say if I decide to be in tennis and one of my gang stalkers decides to join tennis as well, I'm not going to quit tennis because I'm, and I didn't even know I was being gang stalked until later, but I'm just saying, hypothetically speaking, I'm not going to quit tennis because somebody that doesn't like me decides to join. Or I'm not going to do poorly in school to go out of my way and avoid someone because they chose the same class period as me and we have a group project together. I'm not going to fall behind and fail just because I'm, in the group with a gang stalker. That's not how I operated. But that was a lot of times what I had to deal with. It was like they would go out of it's like the people that I went to school with would like go out of their way to make me feel like I'm, unwanted, uninvited. But then they would do stupid stuff like enroll in the same class period as me, or like I said, be a part of the same sports team that I'm a part of, or they will follow me around, or they will stalk me all hours of the day, but then try to make it seem like, they didn't want me around them. I just, and with the gang stalking program, I'm pretty sure a lot of people have gone through that, but that was my experience. I dealt with people who acted like they didn't want me around, or that was how they really felt, but they just wouldn't leave me alone. And it was just like this like sick like obsession. It was like, I can't speak for the person and how they felt, but it seemed like they were going through this like internal battle, you know what I mean? And it was like, maybe I triggered it or something. I don't know, but with some of these gang stalkers, they act like they got like multiple personality or dual personality disorder, bipolar or something, because it's like one day they hate you, and then the next day they love you, and then the next day they like you and respect you, and then the next day they don't. And it's like, they're very fickle-minded. That was what I had to deal with. I never knew when I was coming or going, if I was getting Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde. Like, I never knew what side of these people I was going to get. And I was like the push-pull was probably done as a manipulation tactic to keep me off balance, keep me from having control over my own life. Like I said, I really don't know their motives and why they did what they did. Because I can easily say, well, it was envy, or it was jealousy, or it was pride or greed or whatever. But I can't speak for the people who participated in this. I can't speak for them. I can only just observe their behavior and say, well, this is my hypothesis as to why they behave like this, but I really don't know. They're sick in the head for sure. They may even have a personality disorder, or they may have demons, that they're battling. But it was, it was hard to put the judgment where the judgment needed to go and point the finger where they needed to go, because they were very covert. The people that I was dealing with that were gang stalking me were very covert and they were passive aggressive and confrontational, in a sense that they would like send their flying monkeys to like say to me what they really wanted to say. But when I tried to confront them or call them out, it was like they tried to act like everything was good and everything was fine and dandy and nothing was wrong. And so I knew that there was something was up, And some of the flying monkeys will actually remind me of the person that sent them. Like say for instance, my sister will send like a flying monkey or two, to come keep tabs on me. The flying monkey would act in a way very similar to how my sister would act if she was choosing to be aggressive and say how she really felt. Acting in the same ways, talking in the same manner, saying things that my sister would never say to me to my face, but I could kind of tell that was how she really felt. Like, that was stuff I had to go through. Or say if it was my mother sending people to gang stalk me, and they would act in a manner where my mother didn't treat me like that or act like that to me, to my face, but the person that was the flying monkey carried out this person's agenda, acted in ways that this person wanted to act towards me, but either didn't have the courage, or if they did these things, the abuse would become obvious. So they had to send somebody to be bait. Somebody that was like-minded and shared the same views, that was willing to do the dirty work. Okay? So that was my experience. So, who can I say the people were involved? Well, it's very hard to say because they were very covert. But I'm just going to share what I know. I'm going to start off with my mother. My mother is the ringleader in why I was human trafficked. My mother was the ringleader. she had been doing this to me ever since I was about 3 or 4. I don't know why. Maybe it was to pay bills because we were we were. My family comes from a very very poor family. We were very poor, very very poor, and some of my family members that were a part of the war, that were veterans, were a part of the. Excuse me, it bit me. Anyway, some of my family members that were on my mom's side of the family were veterans, and they were a part of the Tuskegee experiment, the Tuskegee syphilis experiment. That might have something to do with it because, when people, when targeted individuals, when we come together and we start sharing our stories and we start coming up with conclusions as to why we're being gang stalked, the common denominator between us all is that some of us have family members that are veterans. Most children of veterans get gang stalked because the United States government wants to know, what does this person tell you about the war, their war stories? What secrets did they reveal, right? And so some of us become gang stalked because of that. Some of us, like I said, with the Tuskegee the Tuskegee experiment, it was a lot of veterans who ended up catching syphilis. There are a lot of veterans who ended up catching syphilis, and a lot of my family members participated in the war during that time of the Tuskegee experiment. A lot of my families, especially on my mom's side of the family, there are a lot of men in my family who were veterans who fought for this country, and they were forced to be a part of the Tuskegee experiment. And who knows if syphilis was spread throughout my family, but that's a huge thing in my family. So that's something to look into. That my family, my mother's side of the family, should be tested for syphilis, because the veterans on my mother's side of the family were forced to enter into this Tuskegee experiments for either monetary gain or the military forced them in. Okay? So that could be one reason why I was gang stalked. Another reason is the Masonic cult, or the fraternity. My mother was a part of the fraternity along with her friends. They were all part of the fraternity. I don't know what the name of the fraternity was, like pink and green sorority. I'm saying fraternity. That's for men. I meant to say sorority. My mother was a part of the sorority, and the friends that she grew up with, that she went to to high school with, were a part of the sorority, like her childhood friends and stuff like that. They were part of the sorority. I would have to find out what colors are the pink and green, and that have that little O with the line in the middle. I'm gonna have to find out what sorority that is, and I'll put it in the link in the description below as far as the sorority that my mother was a part of. But my mother was a part of the sorority. And we all know that with sororities, they have to go through hazing, which is an extreme level of bullying and harassment and degradation to be a part of it. Now, some sororities and fraternities, if they're in the minority, they don't practice that hazing, stuff. But for the most part, any sorority or fraternity that you choose to be a part of practices hazing and branding as well. Branding. It's no different from slavery. This is no different from transatlantic slavery. And the people that were branded were a lot of times were the strong ones. The ones that couldn't be broken just off of pure hazing. It took a whole lot more to mark it. That person had to be marked in slavery. And they do branding and fraternities and sororities as a way to let people know, oh, that's my. It's just like, it's almost like in jail. You get some type of branding to let the inmates in the prison facility know that you're a part of their cult, their crew. And the sororities is the same thing. Now, sororities don't push branding as much as, like, prison gangs and the transatlantic slave trade for disobedient, quote unquote, disobedient slaves. But they do practice. There's some people that are dedicated to their fraternity or their sorority order, and they do get branded because it's they're dedicated. For the most part, it's a choice, but in jail, it's not. So the point that I'm trying to make is that my mother was a part of that sorority life. And I believe my father was too. My father was in the fraternity. I think he was a part of the Moorish Science Temple, if I'm not mistaken. I have to look more into that. But my father he was a Moor. My father, he was a Nation of Islam. And I feel like that's a religious fraternity in itself. But yeah, if my father wasn't a part of the fraternity, then he was definitely I mean, I know for sure he was definitely a part of the Nation of Islam. He considered himself a Moor, yes. But I'm not sure if he was a part of the fraternity. I think he was, but he wasn't as heavily into it as my mom was. So the fraternity could be another example, because the fraternities are like they're almost like baby Freemasons. They haven't necessarily been. Most of them are. If they once they get initiated into the fraternity or the sorority, that's when they become a low-level Mason. For some of them, it's an initiation. For others, yeah, for the most part, yes, it is like and I don't know if it's like a silent agreement or it's an unknown agreement. I'm not sure. But the fraternities and the sororities are directly connected to, well, I feel like they're directly connected to Greek culture. They are, specifically. But they do have a connection to Freemasonry, because Freemasonry is an occultic fraternity, occultic fraternity. The Freemasonry is a fraternity. A lot of these gangs and these cliques and these crews are cult followings, low key. The police department is a fraternity. The nursing system is a fraternity. The doctors, they're a fraternity. I mean, any group of people you can think of is a fraternity, especially if there's an agreement between them and the occult to keep secrets and to keep people ignorant and to withhold the truth from people and stop them from going into a healthy lifestyle. That's definitely a fraternity, in my opinion, or an occult or a cult. So yeah, my mother and my father were both a part of that. My grandmother was a nurse. And like I said, nurses, they have a fraternity of their own. They're literally a fraternity, the nurses. A lot of them, especially the black women, were a part of the Nation of Islam, the Fruit of Islam specifically. And, and there's this, give me a moment. Because of my family's religious background, a lot of people are encouraged to be in the medical field, whether it's psychology or being a doctor or a nurse or something professional like being a business person or a lawyer, an accountant, a job that it provides a lot of income. It definitely creates a lot of financial stability. It requires long hours out of the day. But a lot of my family members push that. Like, especially like my mom's side of the family, a lot of the women in my family were pressured to be a nurse because it was like a womanly job, and because we're nurturers, a lot of times we're naturally good at it. And on my mother's side of the family, a lot of the women in my family were nurses. A lot of them were nurses, and some of the men in my family were doctors. You know, but a lot of it was like this unspoken thing where the children in the family were pressured to do a job that pays well and is professional and it benefits the family, but they may not necessarily want to do it. Like I was pressed. I thought about doing psychology, but it was only like an idea. I wasn't really like necessarily trying to be a psychologist, but I definitely felt that intense amount of pressure to be a nurse or a psychologist or a dentist or something like that. Like I was pressured into that, but that wasn't anything that I really wanted to do. And when I decided not to do what my family wanted me to do, I was met with a lot of sabotage. I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to do all these things, and my family members would do little things to sabotage me from expanding in a career of being an artist. They would sabotage my artistic career, and then do little things to subtly push me in the direction of, like I said, being a nurse or a lawyer or a doctor or something like that. Something in a professional field, or being a businesswoman or something like that. Or being a rehab doctor. I was pushed into doing a lot of that, or massage therapy. I was pushed into doing that. I was pushed in that direction. I didn't take it, but that was the direction I was being pushed into. And any like I said, anything that I tried to, any creative ideas or projects that I tried to start in my artistic career were sabotaged and destroyed, because my family members, they wanted that complete control, even at the expense of doing illegal and shady business to do that. Some of my family members sold drugs. Some of them were in gangs. Some of them, conned people and stole from people for a living. And all I wanted to do was just be an artist. And my family went out of their way. So let me continue to go on my mom. Okay, so my mother, I shared with her that I, thought about being a psychologist, but I wasn't really sure what path I really wanted to go. And, she put a lot of pressure in me being something that was going to benefit her. So if I was a dentist, then she would get, hookups at the dentist office. Or if I was a psychologist and she wanted to go get some therapy, she could go to me and get a discount, or, just whatever. It was like whatever benefited her. She didn't really think about what I wanted or what was beneficial for me. She only thought about what she wanted and what was beneficial for her. And then, I think, with a mother's intuition, I think she knew that I was gay for quite some time. And she would do things to, like, sabotage me from finding romance. She would do things like she would... it's kind of hard to explain because she was very covert and it's, like, little to no proof. But she would talk to my friends and befriend my friends, which was, like, kind of weird. But she would befriend my friends, and she would bribe my friends, and she would bribe them into, doing things that were unethical, that ended up harming our friendship. Like I said, she was a ringleader of being human trafficked, and me being human trafficked. So if it was... making money off of, forcing me to sell my body for sex, then that was what she would do. Or if she would, like I said, infiltrate my friendship circles and say, like, the people that I trusted, that I told certain things to, she would get them to report back to her, or report back to my brother or my sister, and use that against me later. It was just very diabolical, but that was things that my mother did. She infiltrated my friendship circles. She got my friends to engage in unethical behavior via her bribery and influence. She even got my brother and my sister to do the same. Yeah, pretty much. It's been going on for so long. It's kind of hard for me to pinpoint when and what, right? But it's happened ever since I was 3, and sometimes I still suspect that it's still going on to this day. Who knows, right? I don't have any evidence, but this is my testimony. So that's what my mother has done. She sabotaged me, infiltrated my friendship circles, isolated me from healthy potential friends and, healthy adult figures in my life. She isolated me from. She ruined my reputation. She set me up, to get, just on top of the human trafficking, she set me up to get raped by my brother. She set me up to get molested by my sister. She set me up to get molested by my family members and my cousins. She was like the Wicked Witch of the West. That was what my mother was. I had to live with that. Imagine having the Wicked Witch of the West be your mother. You know what I'm saying? My mother was the Wicked Witch of the West. My mother. My mother was solely responsible for me being human trafficked, labor trafficked, and sex trafficked. My mother was responsible for me being isolated from people. My mother was responsible for me being homeless. My mother was responsible for me being jobless. My mother was responsible for me having a child forcibly. Like, I have a child, right? And I've not met the child. I haven't met this child. I don't have a relationship with this child. And this child was forced upon me because she wanted grandchildren. She made that clear to me when I was a kid. She's like, I want grandchildren. She would press for it. She would really, really press for it. And I made it clear to her that I did not want grandchildren. And that was my choice, right? Because it's my body, my choice, right? But my mother, being a malignant, narcissistic psychopath, she did not take no for an answer. So what did she do? She set me up to get raped to force me into having a grandchild. Very sick, very diabolical, very evil. But she did that to me. And I have a son, and I've never met him before. And my mother was able to influence my child's father to suck me dry of child support, of all my resources and all my finances, and alienated me from my child. I had this child like it was not consensual. The sex was not consensual, and me getting pregnant and having a child was not consensual at all. This was forced. This was sex labor. I had to deal with the physical damages of having a child, prematurely, and it was forced on me. I wasn't in the best health. I wasn't in the best shape. I was being raped. And my mother set that up. My mother did this to me. My sick, insane mother did this to me. She's responsible for this. Okay? Let's just make this clear. My mother set me up to be molested by my sister, my brother, my cousins, my father. Damn near any member of the family that chose to participate in this participated. Damn near every so-called frenemy that wanted to get their little 2 cents in and to get their little piece of energy participated in this. My mother basically had me out for sale. My mother posted me up for sale. And whoever was a willing buyer was a buyer. My mother prostituted me from the age of about 3. I'm just going to go on a limb and say 3. all the way up until I don't know when it stopped. Sometimes I question if it's still going on. And, I would have incidences where, excuse me, excuse me, when I was younger, I would have incidences where, CPS would show up a lot. And this was like during elementary school, but I would have incidences where CPS would show up at the house, and I didn't know why. All I knew was to be quiet. That's it. Be quiet, watch TV. So I was like, okay, well, I was a child. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what was happening. And unfortunately, being a child and you have an abusive parent, that's the person that you depend on, unfortunately. So because my mother was extremely abusive, and she was a single parent, she was a breadwinner in the family, whatever she said went, because if she didn't have money, we didn't eat. If she couldn't pay the electricity, we couldn't do certain things. Like do homework. Especially when we got home from school and it was dark outside, and if the light bill wasn't paid, I wasn't able to do my homework. We didn't have no internet, no computer, nothing. So some of the classroom assignments that I had that required the internet or a computer or something like that, I didn't get to access. Because my mother, as soon as I got home from school, my mother went from one job to another. So it was like, it's not like I could ask her for help with my homework, because by the time she got home from work, me and my sister were long sleep in the bed. So it was hard growing up with a single parent, no help from the father, nothing. Father's a deadbeat, grandmother's a pushover and an enabler. You know what I mean? And mother is a malignant, narcissistic psychopath who's willing to sell her own children out to be sex slaves just so she can have Gucci bag or Prada outfit or whatever, Baby Fat, whatever name brand that she wanted to support her shopping addiction. She was willing to throw me, my sister, my brother, whoever under the bus. And there's no telling what else she's done. Because considering the fact that I was, sex trafficked, who's to say anybody had cameras and was recording it? Now, what I had to go through was not consensual. Any sexual act that I had when I was being sex trafficked was not consensual. I was sedated, I was drugged, and I didn't remember. Until, how when a person loses their memory, whether it's like a blunt force trauma or they were sedated, their memories start to come back. Through healing, the memories start to come back. So any childhood trauma that you've experienced or that I have experienced that was either blocked out or I was sedated into forgetting slowly started to come back. I slowly started to remember certain things that seemed abnormal because I didn't remember it at the time that it happened, but it started to make sense. So if someone is sedating you, or say if somebody knocks you unconscious, or they use black magic to wipe your memories from the traumatic experience, or say someone's mind tunes it out or blocks it out naturally because they have an out-of-body experience, the memories start to come back at some point, especially when an individual is ready to start healing that trauma and ready to start addressing and facing that pain. The memories start to come back and the magic wears off, especially if a higher power or say our ancestors put a stop to it. And in my particular case, some of my ancestors got involved. The creator got involved. The justice system got involved. The magic started to wear off. People were facing consequences and getting karma. People that were involved in screwing me over, the group of people that were gang stalking me and screwing me over started throwing each other under the bus and started exposing secrets that the other person was hiding, and then one person was exposing secrets that this person was hiding, and everybody kind of just started throwing each other under the bus to avoid facing consequences, when the reality of it is they all needed to face consequences for what they did. But this is ultimately what started happening when I started cutting people off and I walked away from certain people and I started ignoring certain people. I started noticing how they were kind of like together at first as one big crew, one big gang, one big clique. And then when they started noticing that they were getting consequences and one person was about to go to jail, they all started throwing each other under the bus. It's like when it came down to making me feel insignificant or unwanted or uninvited, they were all in unison on that. But when behind closed doors and when I walked away and I was no longer worried or concerned about what they had going on or trying to fit in, I started noticing how they all started turning on each other. One by one, each person started leaving the group and doing their own thing. Or even some of them that had compassion and empathy for me or that had my back started getting scapegoated as well. And they were treated the same way I was being treated. Actually, some of them were treated worse. Because I went through what I went through because, like I said earlier, I decided to be different from my peers and my family. They're being scapegoated because they know too much and they showed some levels of empathy and compassion. Therefore, when a group of narcissistic cult members start to notice that some of the members have compassion or empathy or sympathy towards the scapegoat, when the scapegoat leaves, those people who have compassion and sympathy and empathy for the scapegoat are already labeled as black sheep. Everybody in the group is being watched, right? Everybody in this cult and this covenant is being watched. The scapegoat is being chosen because they are the healthiest person in that group. They're the ones who are most likely, when they have healed enough and raised their vibration to a healthy amount, to healthy, frequency, they're going to end up being the first ones to leave the group and shatter everybody's paradigm and reflect back to everybody that they're toxic and predatory and they're sick. That's why the scapegoat is being scapegoated in the first place, i.e. me. The black sheep in the group are the sheep who are smart enough to follow the goat when the building sets on fire, right? Because the goat can always sense a trap. When a goat is in the slaughterhouse, the goat is a lot of times smart enough to try to find an escape route. The black sheep may not necessarily be fully aware of what's going on, maybe have some type of intuitive hit that something's wrong, but a lot of times they need either a shepherd or some animal that's in a leadership position to guide them out of that slaughterhouse most of the time. And if there's no one else around and the black sheep is the only one, the black sheep will sometimes be strong enough to get up and leave that slaughterhouse. But sheep, for the most part, will go wherever the herd is going, even if it's being guided towards a burning building or a slaughterhouse. The scapegoat, on the other hand, can smell a trap, can smell death coming, can smell a burning building, and will leave. The black sheep are a lot of the times the ones who follow the goat or the shepherd out of whatever dangerous situation that they're in. Then next thing you know, the rest of the sheep will start to follow. If I'm making that clear. So when it came to this covenant that I was born into, that I was forced into by association and by blood, I was that scapegoat that smelled death, that smelled the burning building and the death of the flesh of the other animals that were in the slaughterhouse that got slaughtered. So I got out. The black sheeps, the people who had some compassion for me and respect for me and that actually liked me or they didn't have a problem with me, were some of the ones who got scapegoated next when I left. When I left, those were the ones that were scapegoated next. Those were the ones that realized how bad it is to be a scapegoat and how unfavorable that is and how unfair they were to the scapegoat by either treating them the exact same way that everybody else did or by not standing up for the scapegoat. The black sheeps soon realize, damn, now I'm starting to understand why the scapegoat got up and left. We're toxic. We're unhealthy. Some black sheeps know better. They know exactly why. And it's that unspoken thing. Some black sheeps are kind of clueless and they're like, as long as it's not me being the scapegoat, then I'm good. And I personally don't have a problem with the scapegoat. I don't have an issue with this person. I just don't have enough strength to stand on my own 2 feet to be a scapegoat. You know? So, yeah. And in this particular case, when it came down to the group of people that I was around, I was a scapegoat. My mother was the villain. And it's kind of hard to say who was a black sheep and who was just like the herd following the evil shepherd. But some of the people who kind of came to me on their own and were like, they came to me on their own and were like, look, all putting my pride aside, I understand why you left. I understand why you're not talking to me. I understand why you had to cut people off. You know, and the ringleader, you know, i.e. my mother, is intolerable to be around. I understand why you left. You know, I thought everything was peaches and cream until you decided to stop being a punching bag, and then she made me the punching bag. You know what I mean? So it was like, you know what I mean? It's just, that was just what it was. So let me describe the role that my brother played. My brother was not a very good person. He was an asshole by nature. And he was the type of dude where, because he was like very masculine, very alpha, he attracted a lot of women. Women, you know, a lot of times they want to be with someone that they feel safe around, protected, that they feel ain't gonna, you know, let them run over them. You know what I mean? Like, they want to be with a man that they know they can't run over. They want to be with a man that's stronger than them, that can pick them up and make them feel like a woman. And, you know, it's understandable, right? Now, I can't relate because I'm not straight, but I understand. But he was my brother was a very handsome guy. Very muscular built, tall, funny. He was very funny, very fun to be around, entertaining to be around. And let's just say, from a non-biased perspective, I understood why women liked him. He was very well-groomed. He dressed nice, very muscular built. And so ladies loved him, you know. And my mother and my sister helped him rape me. As embarrassing as that is to admit, my mother, my sister, and my grandmother all helped him rape me. They helped him. Kept it a secret. Kept my child a secret. Enabled his toxic behavior. You know, he was like the golden child, almost. It's fair to say that he was the golden child because it was a lot of women in my family and not very many men. And the men were treated like babies, and the women were, and the female children were treated badly. And, you know, the mother figures and the aunts and the grandmothers were hard on us growing up. But the boys, the sons, were treated like royalty and almost spoiled to death. Spoiled and pampered and infantilized. You know, so all while I'm getting in trouble for small things, my brother's doing way worse and getting away with it, which ended up catching up with him in the long run. But it was very unfair to have to go through that when I'm getting all the heat, all the blame, and my brother's doing way worse, like doing hardcore drugs as a kid, and I'm sitting here and I'm clean cut, going to school, you know, following the rules, and my brother is just like acting up, going in and out of jail, and molesting me on top of that, and being treated like royalty, you know. it sends the wrong message to it for an impressionable, innocent young mind. So, yeah, my brother, like I said, he had women flock to him, and I supported that. I mean, I was cool with it. There's nothing wrong with that. You got women flocking to you, then do what you do, boo. But I guess he had this like ancestral love for me that was inappropriate because my mother and my sister helped him molest me. You know, it ended up becoming a thing where I didn't remember our connection, like, you know, whatever happened, I didn't remember, but he did. So I think it kind of backfired in the long run because I was being sedated, I didn't remember what was going on. He did. He kept all those painful memories, and he ended up developing an obsession over me. He claimed that it was like he's in love with me or whatever, which, I mean, I still think that that's wrong either way. But he claimed that he was in love with me at some point. And this is in the midst of me finding out that I have a son, that we have I have a son with my actual brother. Like, I have a son with him. And I'm finding out that I have a son, and I'm finding out that he was the whole reason why, like, all my hair fell out. Because there was one time where, you know, I got my hair done during prom, and I got extensions. So he was helping me, you know, cut out the extensions in my hair. Now, most people would say, why you let your brother do that? I'm explaining that later. But he was clipping out the extensions in my hair, and when I looked in the mirror, like, all of my hair was gone, like, all of it was gone, and I was like in complete shock and disbelief because I had like a healthy, decent amount of hair, and I went from having a decent amount of hair to being a decent length to having no hair at all, and having to suffer having a bald head for maybe about 10 years for unknown reasons. And I'll explain that later as well. My brother, I trusted my brother to take out my extensions, and he like cut off all my hair, and it was very, very cruel. It was like very cruel, very traumatizing. I don't know why he did it, to be honest. I don't know. I really don't know. And that's something that, you know, if the federal agency decides to investigate and take him to court, or say if I decide to press charges and we're in court and they question him about that, like, why did you take all her hair out? You know, it depends on him on whether or not he wants to be honest. Like I said, when people do horrible things, most of the time, you know, you never really know if they're telling the truth. Like, most of the time when they do something and they don't have a probable cause, they'll either lie, like they'll deny it, or they'll exaggerate as to why they did it. They'll exaggerate as to why they did what they did. Like, oh, well, remember that time when you pushed me down the stairs and you know, and we were like in 5th grade, and now it's, you know, we're both in high school, and I blah blah blah, you know, some bullshit. I'm not saying that never happened, but I'm just saying, like, when you deal with somebody that acts in such a cruel way and they're being held accountable, a lot of times they'll either make up something or they'll exaggerate something you did a long time ago that may have been unintentional, that they held on to and they use as an excuse for their abusive behavior. Like, every time I try to have a conversation with him about, you know, why he took my hair out or why he did that, I was never really able to get an answer. He was very avoidant. Like anytime I tried to have a reasonable conversation with him as to why he behaved the way he did, he always ran away from it. But say like if I started like exposing him for an example, then he would come to me and he would start, trying to like offer like promises to like compensate me or whatever. And he was kind of just stringing me along. And yeah, I mean, he was a very horrible person, and he put me through a lot. And he claimed that it was because he was in love with me, but I think, to be honest, if we're talking about love, if you really love someone, you wouldn't be able to hurt them like that. Like, you wouldn't be able to molest them or rape them and humiliate them, get them sent to get them set up to go to prison for a crime that they didn't even commit, or building up different cases against this person to get this person a felony or ruin their life. Like, if you really love somebody, you wouldn't be able to do that to them. You wouldn't be able to, like, and my brother knew how important my hair was to me. My brother, he knew how important my hair was to me. And he took the one thing that was, like, extremely important to me away from me. Like I said, I don't know why he did it. And his behavior was so bad to the point where it got to the point where other people started to lose respect for him. Simply because of how cruel he was towards me. It got to that point. I mean, I'm saying, like, he flipped on me like day and night. He was always a bully. He always was like that. And I didn't tolerate that from him. He wasn't really able to get away with much in an overt manner, so he had to be covert. But I really don't understand why he had so much animosity towards me. I really don't know. Something was wrong with him, really mentally wrong with him. But one thing that I can say that he said was, so many women would just throw themselves at me. And I don't know what that had to do with me. Maybe that was his excuse or his reasoning as to why he responded to me in such an aggressive and cruel manner, was because I was one of the very few women that flocked to him. I was gay, so I didn't like men. Plus, he was my brother, so I wasn't going to, have a relationship with my brother. It's not right. So, maybe, like I said, because he had, like, an ancestral, like, connection with me, he was disappointed at the fact that I didn't return the feelings. And it was like every way, shape, or form, the answer was no. He was my brother, he was a man, and his personality was foul. So even if he wasn't my brother or he was a woman, his personality was intolerable to put up with. He was intolerable to be around after a certain point in time. So it was like, I kept my distance from him. But yeah, he raped me. He did. And then after that, yeah, he was very aggressive towards me. He was very, very, very aggressive towards me. And he's also part responsible for me being human trafficked as well. Like I said, my mother was the ringleader, but he definitely was like the brute. He was the brute. He was like my mother's brute almost. To use his physical strength to like overpower me, and to put me down and put me in my place. He definitely was eager, he was definitely eager to jump at the opportunity to physically put me in my place, whether it was through sexual assault or through extreme amounts of bullying or verbal abuse. He definitely always jumped at the opportunity to side with whatever abuser was oppositional to me, to bully me. I cannot tell you why. The only person you can go to find out the real answer to that, if he even gives you that, because he may not, I wouldn't go as far as to say he's a liar, but he's definitely deceptive and very manipulative. So there's no telling whether or not he really if given the opportunity to kind of defend his honor, I really don't know if he would be 100% honest, or if he would play the victim, because he's used the victim card. He's blame shifted onto me and other people. He's pretty much done everything except for outright lie and take accountability. So he never really outright lied, but he did try to act like he didn't know what was going on, or he did, play the victim or blame shift on me and everyone else. Everything except for taking accountability for his behavior and his actions, and being honest as to what insecurities he was facing to make him act so cruel in the way in which he was acting. Okay? So that's my brother's responsibility. He's a misogynist, he's a womanizer, he's a woman beater, and he's a rapist. Okay? So if anybody out there that knows who I'm talking about that would normally flock to him because he's handsome or has a muscular frame, keep in mind that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, meaning that looks aren't everything. And just because someone looks good on the outside, that doesn't mean they're a good person on the inside. If you saw what they look like in the spiritual realm, you'd probably stay away from them. If you saw their character and how they treated people and how they treat you, how they would treat you if you got on their bad side, you might want to think twice. And some people who may not look the best on the outside, but have a beautiful soul, and if you saw what they look like in the spiritual realm, that'd probably be the first person you talk to. So keep that in mind. I would recommend watching the movie Shallow Hal. And the reason why, this is slightly off topic, but the reason why I say that is because a lot of my family members were very good-looking people. Like, if you see their pictures when they were young, like, damn near all of them were, like, some handsome, beautiful people. I mean, seriously. Like, the beautiful, handsome gene, the aesthetically pleasing gene passes in my family like gold. You know what I mean? Like I can't find like not one family member where I can really truly say this person don't look good. Like, my like good genes, they run in my family. Like my family members are some very attractive people, especially in their younger years. But when you look on the inside, you look at their personality, the way they treat, like the way some of my family members treated waiters and waitresses, and the way they treated like customer service clerks and homeless people and people who are less fortunate or people who had no use for them, then you would probably reevaluate. Because somebody could be so attractive, but their personality is just so intolerable, and sometimes that happens. In this particular case, my family members were some of the most beautiful people in the world, but they were internally, they were so ugly. They were so ugly internally that, just by the mere sight of them will make you want to puke, because their personality and what they're known for is so outrageous that it's just truly disgusting to be associated with them. And for those who may not understand, like they know my family members, they think, oh man, this person's so nice, this person's so kind and handsome or beautiful, whatever. I thought that before I started becoming more awakened to my abuse. I used to think that my mother was the most beautiful woman on this earth. And I treated my mother so well because that was how I was raised. But I thought my mother was the most beautiful woman on this earth, and no woman's beauty could outmatch my mother's beauty. I thought my mother was this excellent, great person because I was numb and I had amnesia to my abuse. So I thought my mother was this beautiful, great person, hardworking person. And then when the veil got lifted, it just came to be that my mother was this hideous goblin underneath. And it wasn't just my mother, my sister, my brother, my cousins, my father, whatever. When the veil was lifted, it came to be that my family members were a bunch of goblins and monsters and ghouls and gargoyles and blood-sucking leeches and reptilian monsters. That was what they looked like in the spirit realm. That's what they looked like internally. Even though they had this beautiful human shell on the inside, they looked like some of the demons off the movie The Legend. If you've seen the movie The Legend and you've seen some of the demons, the devil's minions, them motherfuckers was ugly. That's what they look like internally. That's what my family members looked like internally. They were so ugly on the inside that at some point when I pulled my energy back, that was what they started to look like on the outside. Because they had been feeding off of my energy for so long, and when I took it away, I took it away cold turkey. They didn't it was like a drug. I took away their supply. I took away their drug. And I took away that drug. And pretty soon, who they were on the inside started to reflect on their outer appearance as well. So let me move on to my sister. My sister was one of the people who went out of her way to look like an innocent person, or like a good person, or like a victim, or like she was submissive, or like she was gentle, like she was kind. She basically mirrored my empathic feminine aspects. That was what she pretended to be. My sister, specifically. And for those of you that don't know, my sister is I'm almost embarrassed to say it, but my sister is I'm embarrassed to say it because this is the first time where I've actually started exposing names. But my sister's name is Sara Lena. I don't know if y'all know who she is. She's YouTube famous. And if she wasn't a terrible person, I'd be supportive of her. But for those of you all who know who Sara Lena is, that's my sister. And she was the one who did the drugging. She was the one who drugged me and forced me into having threesomes with other men. And her excuse was for her bad behavior was that I used to cuss her out and snap on her. Now let me share my side of the story on that aspect, okay? Because ultimately what Sara Lena did was she took credit for some of my ideas. She harvested some of my energy, and she mirrored my feminine aspects, my feminine qualities. And then her entire platform is based off of the very ideas that I shared with her. Okay? Her entire platform is built off all the ideas that I shared with her about the Black community and, some ways in which we can bridge the gaps between male and female so we can understand each other so that we won't always be so oppressed all the time by other groups of people, and we won't be oppressing each other because we'll understand each other better. She stole my ideas and didn't give me an ounce of credit. She molested me, and she sedated me to get me to engage sexually with other men that I did not want to engage with. I don't know why she did it, other than the fact that she has a sex addiction and she's mentally ill. But I think another reason why she did it, and I'm going to use one of her videos actually as a reference, but I think, the part of the motive as to why she did what she did was because she was homophobic. It was either because she was homophobic or she was envious of me and how comfortable I was in my own skin. So she used my childhood trauma to try to break down my confidence and isolate me from other people. But I felt like, she shared some homophobic views that kind of explained her behavior. Yeah, she had some homophobic views that kind of makes sense as to why she drugged me and forced me to have sexual relationships with other men. Because that's a very cruel thing to do to somebody. So, I mean, there has to be some type of motive, right? Her excuse was that I used to snap on her and yell at her when we were kids. And I used to cuss her out. That was her excuse. Doing something as terrible as drugging somebody and essentially helping another person rape me was her excuse to committing such a horrible crime like that could get her sent to prison for a very long time. Her excuse was I used to instead of her cutting me off or calling me out on that, she decided that the appropriate response was to sedate me and help somebody rape me and have non-consensual sex, essentially, for energy harvesting reasons. Like, she even told me out of her own mouth that the only reason why she was connected to me was because I was a charging station for her. She just used me. She made that clear. And that she felt like I should have been with a man and that I need to be more feminine. She made that clear. That was her excuse, ultimately, as to why she did what she did. She was a narcissist and she just used me for my energy. She, basically felt like I was wrong for cussing her out. And whatever other reasons that she's not saying. Because a lot of times it's not always what people say. Sometimes it's what they don't say. And she made a joke one time at my expense where she was like, "Oh, you're kind of like a guy." And then she saw that I didn't think that it was funny, and she continued to laugh anyway. And then she would make these little slick comments like, "Oh, you should be with a man. You need to be with a man." And then she made fun of me for quote unquote being fast when she was one of the people who single-handedly had a part in me being sex trafficked. You see how sinister and evil the mind of a narcissist is? She victimized me sexually and then accused me of being essentially a slut. Or raunchy was what she said. She said I was being fat. I was raunchy and that I was being fast, which raunchy means extremely dirty. That was cruel. But that was when her mask came off. That was how she really felt. And that was what she said. She said you were raunchy and you were fast. Even though she forced me into having sexual encounters with people that I had already rejected long beforehand. You see what I'm saying? The mind fuckery behind a narcissist or a psychopath. And she was the type of person where she would make excuses and she would manipulate. She would lie, outright just lie. She would withhold information. She was like a covert bully. You know what I'm saying? Like, she was a psychopath. She's a psychopath. And one of the videos that I'm going to reference in this video is, there's this video that she made that said, "What makes a woman more submissive?" Now, me personally, I don't have a problem with women wanting to be in that submissive role, nor do I have a problem with men wanting to be in that dominant role. What I have an issue with is two people or one person going out of their way to destroy someone's life to try to force a person to be a certain way. Meaning, in this particular instance, my sister going out of her way to make me a submissive woman like her. Or, me being publicly humiliated and made fun of because I was a little bit more masculine than most women. And then trying to break me down so badly to change me and morph me into someone that I didn't want to be, nor did I recognize, and nor would anybody who really knew me and accepted me for who I was would have been even comfortable seeing within me. You see what I mean? Like, so My sister went out of her way to break me down, whether it was verbally, emotionally, spiritually, drain me of my energy, being emotionally abusive, being verbally abusive, to try to break me down. And then she would do sneaky things, like I said, put drugs in my food or drink to make me more willing to have sexual encounters with people that I did not want to have sexual encounters with. Like, something was wrong with her. Something is seriously wrong with her. And in the video where you watch, where she says how to make a woman more submissive, what I've noticed in that video, and where I felt like that's just evidence, auditorial evidence as to some of the motives as to why she treated me the way she did. And if you look into that video, you'll see that she does more slandering towards masculine women than she actually explains how to make a woman submissive. Like, she may go into, she may talk a little bit about how, how to make a woman submissive, but then she talks about she try to like downplay or slander masculine women. And trust me, I know her undertone. I know her long enough to know when she's talking shit. And to those, it may seem harmless, or it may seem like she's just being honest, but the reality of it is she's just being verbally abusive. Because no one asked her how to make a masculine woman submissive. She's not how can she speak for a masculine woman if she's not that? The only person she can speak for is a feminine woman who likes to be submissive. So what does a masculine woman have to do anything with this? And then, if I'm just going to, play devil's advocate here, some masculine women are surprisingly submissive. Some of them are. Not all of them, but some of them are. But some of them don't require an alpha male. Some of them require a beta. Some of them require omega. Some of them can do just fine with an alpha. But, at least speaking for myself, being a masculine woman and having to deal with the backlash of society making fun of me and treating me different, I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm submissive, and no, I don't like when people try to make me submissive. So when someone's trying to make me submissive, they're basically doing something illegal to make me that way. Whether it's slander, gossip, stalking, harassing, sabotage, abuse. That's what they're doing ultimately to make me submissive, because I'm not submissive by nature. No. But there are some masculine women out there that you have to know how to treat them in order to bring that side out of them. And then there are some masculine women where you just have to accept that she's very dominant. Some alpha males have a problem with it. Some alpha males are cool with it. But to try to change somebody,